Your garden did not fail in September? You quit in September. Every one of these can still go into a pot right now. And one of them, if you miss it this month, is gone for an entire year. Here is what almost nobody tells you. September is not the end of the season. September is the start of the best one. Every year the same thing happens. The tomatoes go ugly. The basil bolts. The pots look tired, and people decide it is over and stop planting. That is the exact week the best crops of the entire year hit their window. Cool season vegetables do not tolerate autumn. They require it. Cold makes them sweeter, faster, and less bitter than anything you grew in July. The people with the best looking pots in November are not better gardeners than you. They just did not stop in September. But there is a deadline, and it is real. Every crop on this list needs to go into soil while it is still warm enough to germinate, and the days are still long enough to build a leaf and a root before your first frost. Miss that window and you are not planting late. You are planting for nothing. One caveat before we start, and please read it. These windows are written for a temperate zone with a first frost around late October to mid-November. If your winters come early, move everything up 2 to 3 weeks. Your zone range is on screen now and in the description below. Check it before you sow. We are counting down 17 crops. Number 2 is the one with the hard deadline, the one you cannot plant in spring instead. And number 1 is the crop you plant once and harvest twice in 2 different seasons from the same pot. And stay to the end, because there is one trick that makes 3 of these taste completely different, and almost nobody does it on purpose. Subscribe now so you actually see the October episode, because half of these need a follow-up step next month, and I will walk you through it. Let us start at 17. Number 17, Collards. The toughest green you can put in a container, and the one that will still be standing when everything else on your patio has given up. Why September specifically? Collards are built for cold, not tolerant of it, built for it. They handle hard freezes that flatten lettuce and turn basil to black mush, and the flavor genuinely improves once they have taken a frost. Grown in summer heat, they turn tough and bitter, and every cabbage worm in the county finds them. Grown now as the nights cool and the pests wind down, they go tender and mild. What you lose by waiting, collards are slow. They want somewhere around 75 to 85 days to make full-size leaves. Sow in early September, and you are cutting leaves well into winter. Sow in late October, and you get a handful of baby leaves and then nothing, because the light runs out before the plant has any size. The practical note, 1 plant per 5-gallon pot, minimum. They get bigger than people expect, and a crowded collard makes small, tough leaves. Harvest from the bottom up, taking the lowest 3 or 4 leaves and leaving the growing tip alone. Done that way, a single plant feeds you for months instead of once. And do not pull them at the first freeze. That freeze is the thing that makes them worth eating. One more thing on collards, because variety matters more here than people think. Georgia Southern is the old reliable, and it handles heat and cold at both ends. Champion is the one bred to resist bolting, which matters if you get a warm spell in October. And the single biggest mistake with collards in a pot is stripping too many leaves at once. Take 3 or 4 from the bottom, then leave the plant alone for a week. Strip it bare and you will wait a month for it to recover. That is the gentle start. It gets more serious from here. Number 16, bok choy and the whole family around it, mizuna and tatsoi. Why September? This is one of the fastest full-size vegetables you can grow. Baby bok choy is ready in around 30 days, full heads in about 45. But it has one enemy, and that enemy is heat. A summer-sown bok choy bolts, sends up a flower stalk, and turns bitter before you get ahead. September nights are exactly what it wants. What you lose by waiting. That 30-day clock is a September clock. As the light drops through October, the same plant takes 50 or 60 days, and in a container with less soil to buffer it, a late sowing often stalls at the baby stage and simply sits there. The practical note, sow direct, thin to about 6 inches apart, and keep the pot evenly moist. Uneven watering is what makes bok choy bolt early. It is a shallow rooter, so a wide pot beats a deep one. And harvest the whole plant by cutting at the base rather than pulling. And do not stop at bok choy. Mizuna is the frilly one, and it is genuinely the most cold-hardy of the group, tolerating conditions that flatten the others. Tatsoi grows in a flat rosette that hugs the pot and looks beautiful doing it. All three grow identically, so you can put all three in one wide pot and get three different textures from the same watering. That is the cheapest way to make a patio look deliberate rather than accidental. Number 15, turnips. And this is the first crop on the list that gives you two completely different vegetables from one sowing. Why September? Turnips get sweet in the cold and hot in the heat. A summer turnip is sharp and woody. An autumn turnip, sized up in cooling soil, is crisp and mild enough to eat raw. The roots swell fast in the exact conditions we have right now. What you lose by waiting, you are not only losing the root, you are losing the greens, and turnip greens are the part most people throw away without realizing they are the better half of the plant. They are ready in about a month, long before the root, which means a September sowing feeds you twice. Sow too late and you get one thin cutting of greens and a root the size of a marble. The practical note: direct sow and thin properly. This is the one that people get wrong. Turnips crowded together make all leaf and no root, every single time. Give each one 3 to 4 inches. Eat the thinnings as greens. That is not a consolation prize, that is the plan. And pull the roots at golf ball to tennis ball size. On varieties, Hakurai is the one to look for if you can find it. It is a Japanese salad turnip, white, sweet enough to eat raw like an apple, and it will change your mind about turnips entirely if the only ones you have had were boiled. Purple top, white globe is the traditional choice, and it is fine. But the mistake almost everyone makes is leaving them in the ground too long hoping they get bigger. They do not get better. They get woody. Number 14, lettuce. The crop that has probably disappointed you more than any other, and almost never because of anything you did. Why September? Lettuce bolts in heat. Once the weather turns properly warm, the plant decides summer is here, shoots a stalk, and the leaves turn bitter and milky. That is not your watering. That is a biological switch. And the trouble starts even before that, because lettuce seed itself will generally not germinate once the soil sits at 70 degrees or above. September is the month both of those problems finally go away. What you lose by waiting: loose leaf lettuce is a cut and come again crop, which means one September sowing can feed you 5 or 6 separate times. Every week you delay is not a delayed harvest, it is a deleted one. The practical note: grow loose leaf types, not harding types, in containers. Harding lettuce needs a long, uninterrupted run and will usually not make it. Scatter seed across a wide, shallow pot. Barely cover it, keep it damp. Cut with scissors an inch above the soil when the leaves are finger length and it grows straight back. 1 pot, 6 dinners, and give it a little afternoon shade for the first 2 weeks if you are still getting warm afternoons, because that surface heat is exactly what stops the seed coming up. On varieties, look for black-seeded Simpson or an oak leaf type for speed, and red sales or a Salanova mix if you want the pot to actually look good, because red and green together in one shallow bowl reads as intentional. And the single biggest mistake with container lettuce is watering it in the evening. Wet leaves overnight in cool autumn air is exactly how you get rotten slugs. Water in the morning, at the soil, not over the top. Number 13, cilantro. And I want to be blunt about this one because it is the herb that makes people believe they cannot grow herbs. Why September? If your cilantro has ever gone from beautiful to a tall stalk of flowers in about 2 weeks, you did not kill it. You planted it in the wrong season. Cilantro is a cool weather plant that bolts hard in heat, and almost everybody plants it in summer next to the basil and the tomatoes. This is its actual season. Sown now, it stays leafy for months instead of weeks. What you lose by waiting: cilantro germinates in cool soil, but it still needs some warmth in the pot to get going. Sow it in the first 3 weeks of September and it establishes properly. Push it to late October and germination gets slow and patchy, and you spend the winter looking at bare soil. The practical note: sow it thickly and treat it like a leaf crop, not like a specimen plant. Cut the outer stems from the base rather than shearing the top. And sow a fresh pinch every 2 to 3 weeks, which is called succession sowing, so that when one batch finally bolts, you already have the next one coming. That single habit is the difference between a month of cilantro and a whole season of it. Let the last batch flower and go to seed, and those seeds are coriander. Number 12, Chives. This is the only crop on the list that you plant once and then essentially never plant again. Why September? Chives are a perennial, which means they come back on their own every spring for years. Planting in autumn lets the roots establish while the soil is still warm, and the plant is not trying to push top growth at the same time. It goes dormant over winter and comes up early, often before anything else on the patio is woken up. What you lose by waiting. This is not a this season crop. This is a next 5 seasons crop. Every autumn you skip is a spring where you have to start over with a supermarket pot of chives that dies by June. The practical note. Chives are easier from a divided clump than from seed. So if a friend has an established pot, ask them to split it. Autumn is the right time to divide. If you are sowing seed, be patient, because it is slow to start. Keep the pot somewhere it will not be sitting in freezing water all winter, because wet cold kills more container perennials than dry cold ever does. And do not cut it back to nothing in the first year. And there is a second version of this crop worth knowing about. Garlic chives, sometimes sold as Chinese chives, are flat-leaved instead of tubular and taste mildly of garlic rather than onion. They are just as perennial, just as hardy, and they flower white in late summer. Put 1 pot of each by the door, and you have 2 different flavors, permanently, for the cost of a single afternoon. That is as close to free food as container growing gets. Number 11, arugula. If you have only ever bought this in a plastic clamshell, growing your own is going to feel like a small robbery in reverse. Why September? Arugula has a peppery, nutty bite that turns to pure acid in summer heat, and a summer plant rushes to flower in under 3 weeks. Sown now as the nights cool, that bite rounds out, the leaves stay tender, and it slows right down to bolt. Weeks of harvest instead of days. What you lose by waiting, it is ready to cut in roughly 3 weeks, which makes it the fastest green on this list after the radish. 1 September, sowing gives you 5 or 6 cuttings. Sow in November and you get 1 thin picking if the weather is kind. The practical note. Scatter across a wide, shallow pot and barely cover the seed. You are growing a carpet, not individual plants. Cut with scissors an inch above the soil and it regrows. And here is a companion trick. Sow a pinch of arugula in the same pot as a slow crop like your collards or your carrots. It comes up fast, you harvest it in 3 weeks, and it is gone long before the slow crop needs the space. That is catch cropping, and it means you never have a pot of bare soil doing nothing. Number 10, cauliflower. The one everybody assumes is too advanced for a pot, and the one where the cool season is not a preference, it is a requirement. Why September? Cauliflower will not form a head in heat, not a small head, no head. The plant grows leaves, sits there, and never curds up. It needs a sustained, cool run to head properly, which is exactly what autumn gives you, and summer never did. What you lose by waiting. This is a long crop, somewhere around 75 to 85 days from transplant. That is why I am telling you to buy transplants for this one rather than starting from seed. Starting seed now in most zones does not leave enough season. A transplant going in during the first half of September has a real chance. A seed does not. The practical note, 1 plant per 5-gallon pot and feed it. Cauliflower is hungry and a starved plant in a container makes a head the size of a golf ball. Keep the water even because a plant that dries out and then gets flooded will button, which means it makes a tiny premature head and stops. And when the curd is about the size of an egg, snap a few of the big outer leaves over the top to shade it. That is called blanching, and it is what keeps it white instead of yellow. And if the white heading types feel like too much risk for a first attempt, grow a colored variety instead. Cheddar is orange, graffiti is purple, and both are noticeably more forgiving about heading than the classic white ones. They also do not need blanching at all, because the color is the point. Same growing, less fuss, and a purple cauliflower coming out of a 5-gallon pot on a balcony is a genuinely impressive thing to have grown. Number 9, Swiss chard. If you want 1 pot that is still feeding you in December, this is the one. Why September? Chard is closely related to the beet, which means it is genuinely frost tolerant, and it keeps producing long after the rest of the patio has shut down. It also handles a wider temperature range than almost anything else here, so a September sowing does not have to be timed perfectly to work. What you lose by waiting. Chard is a cut and come again crop with an unusually long run. One September pot can be harvested over and over for months. Every week you push it back is a month of harvest off the far end, because the plant needs to reach cutting size before the light drops. The practical note. Chard seed is actually a cluster of several seeds, so 3 or 4 seedlings often come up from what looks like one seed. Thin them, or you will get a crowded clump of thin stems. Harvest from the outside, taking the outer stalks and leaving the center to keep growing. Never cut the crown. A well-managed chard plant will outlive most of the things you planted in spring. And grow a rainbow variety because the stems are genuinely beautiful in a pot and it costs you nothing extra. One practical warning though, chard leaves get very large and a big leaf on a windy balcony acts like a sail and snaps the stem at the base. If you are growing high up or somewhere exposed, harvest the outer leaves a little younger than you would otherwise, and keep the pot against a wall rather than out in the open. A snapped chard stem does not regrow. You have lost that stalk permanently, and on a plant you are counting on for months, that matters. Number 8, beets. And like the turnip, this is 2 vegetables from one sowing, except this time both halves are excellent. Why September? Beets sweeten in the cold. The sugar content genuinely climbs as temperatures drop, which is why an autumn beet tastes like a completely different vegetable from a summer one. They also size up steadily in cool soil rather than bolting the way they do in a hot spell. What you lose by waiting? Beet greens are ready in around a month and the roots in around 2. So a September sowing pays you twice, greens first and roots later. Sow too late and the greens never bulk up and the roots stay marble-sized under the surface, and you will not even know until you pull them. The practical note. Same rule as the turnip, thin them or you get all leaf and no root. Beet seed clusters too, so expect several seedlings per seed and thin to 3 inches. Use a deeper pot than you think, 8 inches minimum, because a shallow pot gives you flat misshapen roots. And harvest at golf ball size for the best texture. Now quick pause here, because I read every comment on this channel and there is one question I get more than any other. People ask which of these will survive their winter. And the honest answer is that it depends entirely on your zone, which I cannot guess from here. So tell me, drop your USDA zone in the comments right now, just the number, and I will reply to as many as I can with what I would prioritize for you specifically. I do this on every video, and it is the fastest way to get a straight answer. Right, back to it, and from here the stakes go up. Number 7, radishes, the fastest food you will ever grow, and the crop that makes a beginner feel like they know what they are doing. Why September? From seed to plate in as little as 25 to 30 days. That is not a typo. But radishes hate heat. Sown in June, they turn woody, split, and bolt to flower before you get a root at all. Sown into cooling September soil, they swell fast, stay crisp, and stay mild. What you lose by waiting. That 25-day clock slows as the light fades. Push into late October and a 25-day radish becomes a 40-day radish that may never size up. The window does not slam shut, it just quietly narrows until nothing finishes. The practical note. Sow thin, 1 seed every inch, directly into the pot. Never transplant them. Radishes resent having their roots moved and will punish you with all leaf and no bulb. Keep the pot evenly watered because dry spells are exactly what make radishes taste hot and split their skins. And try a watermelon radish, green outside and shocking pink inside. It is the easiest showpiece in this entire video, and it grows no differently from the plain red kind. And there is real range here beyond the red globe. French breakfast is the long oval one, mild and the prettiest on a plate. Daikon and other winter radishes are a completely different proposition. Big roots that take 50 or 60 days and store for months. And September is genuinely the right time for those too. Same seed packet habits, same thinning rule, very different vegetable. If you have only grown the small red kind, try one long variety this autumn. Number 6, kale. And here's the thing about kale that changes how you should think about the whole autumn. Why September? Frost does not damage kale, frost improves it. When temperatures drop, the plant converts some of its stored starch into sugar as a form of antifreeze, which is a real physiological response and not a gardening myth. The practical result is that the same leaf genuinely tastes sweeter in November than it did in September. If you have only ever eaten summer kale and found it harsh, you have never actually eaten kale at its best. What you lose by waiting. Kale wants somewhere around 55 to 75 days to make full-size leaves, though you can cut baby leaves much sooner. A September sowing gives you a plant that is properly established before the cold arrives, which is what lets it stand through winter. A late sowing gives you a small plant that survives but never produces. The practical note: 1 plant per 3 to 5 gallon pot. Harvest from the bottom up and never cut the growing tip, exactly like the collards. Do not panic when the leaves droop hard on a freezing morning. They almost always come back up when the temperature lifts. And genuinely, wait for that first frost before you judge the flavor. On varieties, Lacinato, also sold as dinosaur or Tuscan kale, has the best texture and the darkest leaf, and it is the one worth growing if you are only growing one. Red Russian is more tender and better raw in a salad. Curly kale is the toughest and the most cold hardy of the three. And the mistake to avoid is planting kale in a pot that is too small, because a cramped kale plant makes small, bitter leaves and never recovers, no matter how well you feed it. Number 5, peas. And this is the one that surprises people, because everybody thinks of peas as a spring crop. Why September? Peas hate heat. That is the whole story. Spring peas get planted, grow beautifully for 6 weeks, and then the first warm spell arrives, the vines yellow, the pods stop setting, and the crop is over, just as it was getting going. A fall sowing runs the opposite way. It grows into cooling weather instead of out of it, which means the plant never hits the wall that ends the spring crop. What you lose by waiting. This is a timing crop, and the window is genuinely narrow. Peas need around 60 days, and they need to flower before the first hard frost. Sow in the first 2 weeks of September in most zones. Miss it and the vines will grow, but never pod, which is the most frustrating possible outcome, because it looks like success right up until it is not. The practical note: grow a dwarf or bush variety in a container, not a 6-foot climber, and still give it something to grab. Even short types produce far better with support. Use a deep pot, 10 inches or more. Sow direct, because peas hate root disturbance. And pick the snow and snap types rather than shelling peas, because you eat the whole pod, which means far more food from the same pot. Number 4, green onions or scallions. The cheapest crop on this list by a wide margin, because you can start it with something you were about to throw in the bin. Why September? Green onions are hardy, shallow-rooted, and they do not mind cold at all. They also grow fast enough that a September planting gives you cuttings well before winter, and the plants themselves will often overwinter and start again in spring. What you lose by waiting. Honestly, this is the most forgiving crop here, which is why it is not higher. But you still lose the autumn cuttings, and you lose the head start that lets them come back early next year. The practical note: here's the trick. Next time you buy scallions, cut off the bottom inch with the roots still attached and plant that in a pot instead of composting it. It regrows, not once, several times. That is not a hack. That is just how the plant works. Space them an inch apart, use a wide, shallow pot, and harvest by cutting the green tops and leaving the white base in the soil. It regrows from the base again and again. This is the single best pot to put by a kitchen door, because it is the one you will actually use every week, and you do not have to stop at scallions. Leave a few in the pot without cutting them, and they will bulk up into something closer to a small bunching onion over the winter. Evergreen hardy. White is the variety to look for if you are buying seed, because it genuinely overwinters and multiplies at the root, which means the pot gets fuller every year rather than emptier. One packet, planted once, feeding you indefinitely. Number 3, carrots. And containers are not a compromise for carrots. They are genuinely better. Why September? Two reasons, and the second one is why this is at number 3. First, carrots sweeten in the cold, the same starch to sugar conversion as the kale, which is why an autumn carrot is the one that tastes like the carrots you remember. Second, the thing that ruins carrots in the ground is stones and compacted soil, which fork the root and make it split and twist. A container filled with loose potting mix has neither. You have the ideal carrot bed, and you did not have to do anything to get it. What you lose by waiting. Carrots are slow, around 70 days for most varieties. That is why they need to go in now rather than next month. Sow in early September, and you are pulling sweet frost-kissed roots in November. Sow in October, and the light runs out mid-growth, and they stay as thin as a pencil. The practical note: deep pot, 12 inches minimum, and use a shorter, stubbier variety rather than a long tapering one. Sow direct, never transplant, and thin ruthlessly to an inch apart. This is the crop where people cannot bear to thin, and it is exactly why their carrots come out finger thin. Keep the surface damp until they germinate, which is slow, up to 3 weeks, and do not give up on them. And leave them in the pot through a couple of frosts before pulling. That is when they turn to candy. Number 2, garlic. And this is the one I warned you about at the start, because this is the only crop on the entire list where missing the window costs you a full year. Why September? Garlic is planted in autumn and harvested the following summer. It needs a period of cold in the ground to split a single clove into a full head, which is called vernalization. Skip that cold period, and you get one large round bulb instead of a head of cloves. That is why spring-planted garlic disappoints almost everyone who tries it. What you lose by waiting: everything for 12 months. There is no second window. Miss September and October, and your options are to wait until next autumn or to accept a poor spring crop. Every other crop on this list can be sown again in a few weeks. This one cannot. The practical note: do not plant supermarket garlic because it is often treated to stop it sprouting, and it is rarely a variety suited to your climate. Buy proper seed garlic. Split the head into individual cloves right before planting and leave the papery skin on each one. Plant pointy end up, about 2 inches deep and 4 to 6 inches apart, in a deep pot. Then here is the part people get wrong. Nothing visible happens for months. It will look like a pot of dead soil all winter. Do not dig it up to check. It is building roots underneath the whole time, and it will come up in spring. 9 months in a pot for one harvest sounds like a lot. It is also the single highest value thing you can put in a container, because good garlic is expensive, and homegrown garlic is not comparable to what you buy. And number 1, spinach. I put this at the top for one reason that has nothing to do with how easy it is. Spinach is the only crop on this list that you plant once in September and harvest in 2 different seasons. Here is how it works. You sow now. It grows through autumn, and you cut leaves right through the cool weather. Then as real cold arrives, the plant does not die. It stops. It sits there, low and flat, and looking like it has given up, holding on through the winter. And then in late winter, before you have planted anything else, before the garden center is even open properly, it starts growing again on its own and gives you a second harvest weeks before anything you sow in spring. 1 sowing, 2 harvests, 2 seasons. Why September? Spinach seed germinates best in cool soil, somewhere between 45 and 68 degrees, and it drops off badly above about 70. That is why summer sowings fail so often and people conclude they cannot grow it. It was never the gardener, it was the soil temperature. Cooling September soil is exactly the germination window, and the rule the extension services give is to sow 6 to 8 weeks before your average first frost. And like the kale and the carrot, the cold makes the leaves noticeably sweeter and thicker. What you lose by waiting: you lose the second harvest, which is the entire reason it is at number 1. A September sowing has time to build a proper root system and enough leaf to survive the winter. A late October sowing gives you a seedling that goes into the cold too small, and small spinach does not overwinter, it simply dies. This is the difference between 2 harvests and none. The practical note: sow direct into a wide pot, thin to about 3 inches, and keep the soil damp while germinating. Harvest outer leaves and leave the crown, exactly like the chard. And the one step that changes everything is covering it. A simple cloche, a cut plastic bottle over each plant, or a sheet of row cover held off the leaves, is usually the difference between a pot that overwinters and a pot that does not. You are not trying to keep it warm. You are keeping the wind and the wet off it. That is the whole list. But stay for one more minute, because there is a trick that makes 3 of these taste completely different, and almost nobody does it deliberately. Here is the bonus I promised at the start. Most people harvest their kale, their carrots, and their spinach as soon as they are big enough. That is a mistake, and it is costing you the best flavor of the entire year. Wait for a frost, deliberately. When these plants get hit by cold, they convert stored starch into sugar as a natural antifreeze. It is a real measurable response, and it is why a frost-kissed carrot tastes like a different vegetable from one pulled in September. Same seed, same pot, same plant. Completely different flavor. So do not rush. Let the first light frost pass over them, then harvest. And if a hard freeze is coming, that is when you cover them, not before. You want the cold. You just do not want the plant destroyed by it. That single habit is the difference between growing vegetables and growing good vegetables. One last thing, and then I will let you go. Everything I just walked you through, the pot sizes in gallons, the spacings, the thinning distances, the depths, is written down properly in the potted patio manual. 40 numbered methods across 5 sections, with the numbers you actually need at the garden center, rather than the ones you have to pause a video to catch. It is $17 and the link is in the description in the pinned comment. If you would rather just keep watching, that is genuinely fine too. The videos are free and they always will be. Now, half of these crops need a follow-up step next month: covering, mulching, and knowing which ones to stop watering. That is the October episode and it is on screen right now. Watch that one next, because doing the September planting and skipping the October step is how people lose the whole thing in the first hard freeze. Tell me your zone in the comments. I will see you in the next one. Hey.